Oh, we got a loaded one today. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live, right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Man, oh man, this is a good one. This is a good one. I'm telling you. KD traded to Phoenix. All these other trades at the deadline. LeBron just broke the all-time scoring record in NBA history, and that's like back page news now. Oh, my goodness. Mike Guido will be joining in 25 minutes. Looking forward to having him on, the co-founder of the Grid Network, to discuss all things NBA trade deadline. Again, LeBron passing Kareem, Super Bowl. Holy moly. This is, I'm telling you, this is insane. What a week. Rocket Fuel Jets podcast, my man Alfred Parsar Jr. What's up, Alfred? He says, been waiting for this all day. As have I, Alfred. I am, oh my goodness. What? It's just craziness. It's amazing. The week leading up to the Super Bowl, the NBA has dominated the headlines. It's outstanding. Props to Adam Silver, props to the NBA, and props to, I guess, just coincidence for all these things happening at the same time. Most days I would start with Kevin Durant. He is pretty good at basketball, in case you haven't noticed, getting traded to a team in Phoenix, which is now poised to possibly make a potential championship run. But it is hard to overlook what happened on Tuesday night in the City of Angels. Lakers, Thunder, LeBron James entered the game 36 points away from passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the all-time NBA scoring list. And for those of you that did not get to the opportunity to see it, was late, East Coast. It happened around midnight. For those who didn't get the opportunity to see it, here is the shot in which LeBron became immortalized, a record that had stood for 39 years. LeBron broke it. Here's how it happened.
Coming to the end of the third quarter. LeBron James, a shot in history. And it is! LeBron stands alone! The NBA's all-time scoring record now belongs to LeBron James.
A remarkable moment at the Crypto.com arena in Los Angeles. I'll get to the Lakers and their trades and everything in just a second, but let's focus on LeBron, because his story is one of the greatest in the history of sports. Heck, I'd argue the story of one LeBron James is one of the greatest stories we've ever had in the history of America. You got to realize this guy was born December 30th, 1984, Akron, Ohio, to a 16-year-old mother. He never knew his father growing up. All the pressures that came with being that kid in Akron who, hey, hang on a minute, this kid may have something, to at age 16 as a junior in high school. A Sports Illustrated cover dubbed him simply the chosen one. You got to realize this is at the tail end of Michael Jordan's career. He'd only play one more season after that, about to retire as a member of the Washington Wizards, and already as a high schooler, were said, that's the guy. And that kind of pressure as a 16-year-old would break most kids. Listen, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't crumble under that type of pressure. It's unbelievable. Drafted a year and a half later by his hometown team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. By year 2, at age 20 years old, he was averaging 27, 7, and 7 as a 20-year-old. For context, by the way, in year 20, he's averaging 38 and 7. It's remarkable what this guy has done over the course of his career. You consider the fact that in 2007, keep in mind, LeBron James at this point is 22 years old. 21 years old, something like that. He leads the Cleveland Cavaliers to the NBA Finals. They got swept by the San Antonio Spurs, a loss and a sweep that folks still hold against LeBron to this day. Despite the fact that the team he lost to is one of the greatest of all time, led by, in my opinion, the sixth greatest player of all time, Tim Duncan, who his second best player was Tony Parker, who won Finals MVP that year, is going to be a Hall of Famer. LeBron James' second best player was something called Zydrunas Ilgauskas, and yet he took that to an NBA Finals. Left Cleveland, the decision, we all remember, 2010, something that seemed to break the internet at the time, certainly broke the city of Cleveland. How could you possibly ditch us for Miami? Well, I mean, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, who eventually joined, a culture led by Pat Riley, who had won a championship just 4 years earlier. That can be appealing. Heck, just moving from the city of Cleveland to Miami, that by itself is appealing. 2011, LeBron has the worst moment of his career against the Dallas Mavericks, had some bad fourth quarters, games 4, 5, and 6, to lose the series against the underdog Dallas Mavericks led by Dirk Nowitzki. And we started to question, hey, listen, he's great and all, but is he ever going to get over this hump? A year later, he did. Won the Finals MVP in 2012 against the Oklahoma City Thunder, winning his first championship in year 9. Went back-to-back in 2013, beating the same San Antonio Spurs, who, by the way, this time had a young Kawhi Leonard, who had beat him in 2007. Back-to-back championships, back-to-back Finals MVPs. Oh, not to mention at this point in time, he had 4 league MVPs by age 30. This is who he was. 2 years later, he leaves Miami to go back to Cleveland. And I remember thinking at the time, the heck are you doing? Listen, Kyrie Irving is incredibly talented. He led the team to 3 straight losing records. And LeBron, from the jump, made it clear. If you remember the I'm coming home, all that stuff, he had one goal: win a championship for his hometown. A hometown in Cleveland, Ohio, that had not won a championship since Jim Brown led the Cleveland Browns in 1964. 2 years in, please don't remind me. I don't want to get into this too much, but 2016 against the 73-9 Warriors, greatest regular season team of all time, led by the only unanimous MVP in Steph Curry. Down 3-1. No team in the history of the NBA Finals had ever won a series down 3-1 in an NBA Finals. Game 5, Bron drops 41. We're like, oh, okay, he's not going to do that in Game 6. He's like, no, yeah, I will. Drops another 41 in Game 6. And in Game 7, has a triple-double and had one of the greatest plays in NBA history, the iconic block on Andre Iguodala with under 2 minutes to go. Won a championship for Cleveland. The iconic Cleveland, this is for you, quote, a moment that for some vaulted him into the GOAT discussion, and for others vaulted him as the GOAT over the great Michael Jordan, a debate that we will probably have for all time. Goes to LA a few years later. And I remember saying at that time, I didn't have a podcast at that time, but I remember saying LeBron's championship winning days are over. Seemed like he's more focused on business, which I didn't have a problem with. 3 championships, 4 MVPs. You understand that. Year 2, they add Anthony Davis. Lakers are the best team in the NBA. And then a pandemic hits. Like the last thing you could possibly expect. The NBA goes down to a bubble in Disney World. A bubble that broke some of the best teams in the NBA. The Bucks, the Rockets, the 76ers. All of these teams we thought could contend. Boston and the Lakers blew through Portland in the first round. Blew through Houston in the second round. Blew through Denver in the Western Conference Finals. And went on to beat the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. LeBron won his 4th championship and his 4th Finals MVP. Became the first player in NBA history to lead 3 teams to an NBA championship. This is what LeBron James has done. And then Tuesday night, passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to be the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. LeBron's is one of the great stories in the history of sports. 22 years of his life in the public eye. Never a scandal. Never, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, unlike some of the greatest players ever. Michael Jordan, You could say that about. You can't say that about LeBron. Made the people around him better. Rich Paul, Maverick Carter and company. Helped elevate them. That's kind of what LeBron James has always been. Elevating guys on the court, elevating guys off the court. Building the I Promise School in 2018. We understand what his legacy is and will be as a major voice in social justice. We understand what he's done in terms of philanthropy. And we understand that today, according to Forbes, he's a billionaire. The first NBA player ever to be, first ever current NBA player to do that. In business, he's excelled. In philanthropy, he's excelled. On the court, obviously, he's excelled. What more can you say? LeBron James, the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, and the scary part about it is when he's done, and he said minimum, he's got at least another 2 good years left in him. He obviously wants to play with his son, Bronny James, once he comes in the NBA pretty soon. I'm not so sure this record won't be unbreakable. We thought that about Kareem, and for 39 years, that was the case from 1984 to 2023. Even with as many volume scores as we have in today's league, Luka, for example, I don't see Luka playing 20 years, and if he does, I don't see him averaging 30. For context, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was averaging in the teens in year 20. LeBron James is in the top 5 in the NBA in scoring, not to mention to go along with 8 assists and 7 rebounds. This is what he's always been, taking care of his body. This notion, and that's something else about LeBron James, the false narratives that have surrounded him. He's not a great scorer. Well, obviously just the record by itself makes him an all-time great scorer, but he averages 27 a game for his career, does it with remarkable efficiency. Well, he's not clutch. That's funny. He has 5 postseason buzzer beaters, most ever. I simply asked the same question about LeBron James that I asked and the Golden State Warriors asked when they won the 2022 title. What are they going to say now? What do you say now? There's nothing I've said in the last 10, 12 minutes that has not already been said about LeBron James in terms of his greatness and his excellence both on and off the court. Hats off to the king. It was a remarkable moment seeing it on TV. I can't imagine what it was like inside the arena. I'm out of words. I'm out of words for this guy. It's outstanding. It's absolutely incredible. Hats off to LeBron James. We've got some comments here. I see some comments from Alfred talking about the NBA trade deadline, which we'll definitely get into in about 10 minutes with Mike Guido. John Rivera with the king, with the crown emoji. Very appropriate. Patrick Brown, here's the crazy part about LeBron. Scores 38 points, age 38, and 38,388 all-time leading scorer. Not to mention, by the way, Patrick, 38 days into 2023. Okay, so it's just all the 30. It's something about that number 38. And Patrick says, what a numerical night for LBJ. It was a great night. Obviously, the Lakers losing the game didn't put a little bit of a wet blanket on it, but in terms of the moments, I mean, the A-listers of the A-listers were there. We're talking about Denzel. We're talking about Jay-Z. Dwayne Wade was sitting courtside, as was Shannon Sharp. Everybody you could possibly think of in Los Angeles, they were there. What a moment. Now, as for one of his contemporaries, a guy that we have, in the modern era, compared the two of them. He just got traded to the Phoenix Suns. I'm obviously talking about Kevin Durant. Middle of the night, I got a notification. I was laying in bed, half awake, half asleep, see a notification saying that Kevin Durant has been traded to the Phoenix Suns. And obviously it was shocking for most people. I thought it was entirely possible that he could finish this year with Brooklyn, then focus on the future. I feel like the pieces in Brooklyn were good enough to at least win a playoff series, and see what Kevin Durant does with, I wouldn't say suboptimal talent, but not what we would expect of the Brooklyn Nets certainly 2 years ago when they made the James Harden trade. I'll talk about the Nets later on. The failure of that big three cannot be understated. But as for KD individually, getting traded to Phoenix, obviously the trade got Mikal Bridges. Cam Johnson was involved, 4 first-round picks. So 2 key wings for the Suns now gone for KD, who obviously teams up now with Chris Paul, with Devin Booker, not to mention DeAndre Ayton as their big man. Does this make the Suns the favorites to come out of the West? I believe it does. Because now you look at the Western Conference contenders. Talk about Denver, Golden State, Dallas now with Kyrie Irving, paired up with Luka Doncic. You think about some folks are mentioning the Lakers. I have serious doubts. The Clippers made a lot of moves at the deadline today, and certainly were in that mix even before that. You step back and look and you say, okay, Chris Paul's the point guard, has an opportunity to dish to two of the best scorers in the game. Devin Booker, who feels like is kind of going into his prime right now. A guy who, all he did a few years back was score 70. You're talking about a Chris Paul who is third all-time in the NBA in assists. And you're also talking about a Chris Paul who has struggled historically in the playoffs. And a Suns team the last 2 years that has struggled to put away playoff series, two in particular, in which they led 2-0. Think about the series against the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA Finals, up 2-0. We're thinking series is over, and all they do is lose 4 consecutive games. Giannis Antetokounmpo did an absolute number on them. Last year, heavy favorites to beat the Dallas Mavericks in the second round, lead 2-0, lead 3-2 at one point. Blown out in Dallas Game 6 and embarrassed in Phoenix in Game 7. And so it felt like at that point, the Suns' championship window had closed. I predicted them this year to be the 7th seed. This obviously changes everything. One of the Suns' biggest issues against Milwaukee, against Dallas, is when things started to go haywire, particularly on the road. They never had a guy, and I love D-Book, he's a great scorer, but he's not this. They never had a guy give the ball to him, just go get a bucket. Don't care how you do it. Get to the rim, mid-range three-point shot. I don't care how you do it. Get to the free throw line, whatever the case may be. Get us a bucket. They've got that now. They've got a guy who wakes up averaging 30 points a game, who's shooting over 50% for the field, 40% from three, 90% from the line, a 50-40-90 guy in Kevin Durant. The most gifted, I didn't say the greatest, the most gifted offensive scorer that we've ever seen in the game, I believe. You talk about the crossover, the three-point shot, the mid-range, everything. And they lose Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges too, especially Mikal Bridges, who was up for Defensive Player of the Year a year ago. Two of the best wing defenders in the league. 2 threats from the three-point line. Yeah, well, Kevin Durant, I don't know if you noticed, a few years ago he finished top 5 in blocks. He's one of the better wing defenders in the league. That's why he was such a great fit with Golden State. That's why, and it certainly hurt my soul to see that he will not be joining the Golden State Warriors again anytime soon. Certainly, he does have 3 years left on his current deal with the Nets. But I always say about any time I'm evaluating whether a team is a championship contender or not, I always say, do I have more questions than I do answers about you? For years with the Brooklyn Nets, KD, Kyrie, Harden, I had nothing but questions. Depth. You say, well, what about Phoenix's depth? You've got Damian Lee. You've got Cam Payne. You've got Torrey Craig. You've got plenty of guys. Not to mention, by the way, there's going to be a lot of dudes available in the buyout market. Kevin Love looks like might be bought out by the Cavaliers. Patrick Beverley, although I don't think that helped big time, especially considering the fact that Pat Bev and Chris Paul seem to have a little bit of animosity towards one another, if not a lot. But there's going to be plenty of guys. JaVale McGee, I've heard, would be available. He played for Phoenix recently. So you can get some interior presence. There's some shot makers that they're going to be available. I doubt they make the move for Russell Westbrook. It seems like the Clippers are more interested, the Chicago Bulls as well. We'll see what happens in that regard. We'll talk about Russ later in the show. But I know what Kevin Durant is. I know that he's one of the great postseason performers that we've seen. Devin Booker, listen, I've always had questions about whether he's a 1, but is he a 2? Absolutely. And Chris Paul, who has certainly had his playoff struggles in the past, I feel like at least certainly in the scoring load, in the offensive load as a whole, some pressure gets taken off him and put on number 35 and number 1. And you got Monty Williams. Unlike the Brooklyn Nets and their big 3 a couple of years ago with Steve Nash, the Suns have one of the 5 best coaches in the league in Monty Williams, who is as good as anybody at steadying the ship, understanding, what to say, what to draw up at whatever time the game calls for it. So for these Phoenix Suns, anything, and I do mean anything, short of the NBA Finals is an absolute failure. I respect the heck out of Phoenix for doing this. Did they give up a lot? Yeah, they did. They obviously mortgaged a lot of their future with those 4 first-round picks, 2 young players in Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. But as I always say, strike while the iron's hot. If you believe you've got a team that can compete for and possibly win a championship, you go for it. You forget the future, you go for it. As they said, what was it? Les Snead, the GM of the Rams, F them picks, or whoever the GM back in the day said F them picks. That's what the Suns are saying. They understood that they were on the doorstep 2 years ago and didn't have enough. A walking 30 points, the most efficient 30 points in the league currently, that'll certainly solve some of your issues. So do I love the trade for Kevin Durant for the Phoenix Suns? I do. Now, am I saying they're going to win the West? No, I'm still rolling with my Warriors. I'll talk about the Gary Payton move later. But this is a fantastic move by the Phoenix Suns. As for Brooklyn, well, have fun with Ben Simmons. I should enjoy that. We've got a few comments here. Alfred says, Phoenix's biggest struggle will be staying healthy. Yeah, Devin Booker is just now coming back from injury. KD is coming back, I think, right after the All-Star break, if not maybe right before. We got about a week and a half until the All-Star game, so we'll see what happens there. Let's see. And like Alfred said, everyone's forgetting Phoenix still has Ayton monster lineup. I have questions about Ayton in terms of his playoff productivity. The last 2 years, that's been in question a little bit. Really, the last great Ayton playoff moment we saw was that buzzer beater in Phoenix against the LA Clippers back in Game 2 of the conference finals. Ever since, we've seen him and Monty Williams have this weird I don't know what's going on between them, but we'll see if that can get corrected. It's going to need to if they want to win a championship. John Rivera, easy money. That's it. Easy money sniper, as his Instagram handle is. And Alfred says, Suns still have depth. Damian Lee, Torrey Craig, Landry Shamet. That's true. Bismack Biyombo, Jack Landale, Saban Lee. Grady Edwards, what's up, Grady? He says, can KD and Book get healthy before we say the Suns are going to win the championship? KD is still a superstar, but very injury-prone player at this point in his career. We have seen that. That's totally fair. Although the only thing I would say is injuries have not tended to plague KD in the postseason. It's tended to be more of a regular season thing. Why that happens to be the case, I'm not quite sure. And injuries is certainly absolutely a concern. But I would also say the other contenders out west, all of them have injury concerns. Outside of maybe Denver, Jamal Murray comes back. He looks good. But Steph's out in Golden State. We know about Kawhi's we said the best ability is availability. Kawhi has really struggled to stay healthy throughout the course of his career, especially here in Los Angeles, or there in Los Angeles. You've got, obviously, Dallas with Kyrie Irving. He struggles to stay on the court, not just for the off-court stuff, but even on the court, he's struggled with injuries. So I would say for all the contenders out west, like that. I mean, if you want to say the Grizzlies a contender, John Morant struggled with injuries. He got hurt in the playoffs last year. So if you want to use the injury thing, fine, but I would say that's the case for all of the teams. They all have injury question marks. Let's see. And Alfred says, if I were the Suns, I would have done my best to hold on to Bridges. He's been the most durable player in the league in his 5 years, hasn't missed a game, which is incredible considering the load management in today's NBA. But while he's great, I'm going after Kevin Durant. I'm sorry. If I have an opportunity to land that guy, I'm going to go try and get that guy in the building. So definitely some great moves here at the NBA trade deadline that we'll get into with our next guest. He is the co-founder of the Grid Podcast Network. He is also, in my opinion, the greatest draft guru that I've ever seen this side of Mel Kiper and Jay Billis. Would you please welcome back to Carving It Up Live, Mike Guido is joining Carving It Up. Mike, how you doing, my man?
Bryson, it's good to be back, brother. I appreciate the Mel Kiper, Jay Billis compliment. Yes. Those are two great, phenomenal draft guys to be even mentioned in the same sentence. I love it. I appreciate it.
Hey, listen, I got to show you respect where it's due. That mock draft you sent us a year ago, myself and Barry Grant Jr., shout out to Barry, who was on the draft show last year in the NBA. It was outstanding. It was detailed. I think you got, and it drove you nuts. You got 57 of the 58 players drafted. You scouted, I think it was.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure.
Yep, it was my own team that did it to me. It was Luke Travers at the end of the draft. Just didn't, it drove me nuts. But whatever. What are you going to do?
Absolutely. So before we get to KD, you're a big LeBron guy, obviously, as a Cavs fan.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway on him passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, just the night in general, and just how you view LeBron through the lens of scoring?
So I don't know. There's a lot of ways that you could look at it, but the thing is with LeBron and him breaking the scoring record and getting through, getting past Kareem, which we thought, again, you brought it up before. Kareem's record was deemed, it was going to be unbreakable. I mean, he was, whatever it was, 3,000 points ahead of Karl Malone. And people thought at the end of Malone's career, we're just like, listen, Malone's almost as good as they come. And he's not even going to get close. But I think what people are not realizing, and, I thought it was smart of you to bring it up before, is that LeBron, I think, has at least another 2 good years left, at least average. I mean, think about it. He's averaging 30 now. I mean, if he in 2 good years, 2 more years is still averaging 20, like that's the kind of thing. This record is not only going to be broken, it's going to be shattered. Like, I think that he's going to end his career with 45 or 46,000 points. I mean, it's going to be an unreasonable number. And then at that point, I just don't know what what the people that say that LeBron isn't the GOAT, I just don't know what their argument is anymore. I understand the 6-year run that Jordan had between 91 and 98, between the 2 years that he took off. Right. But I mean, just a total body of work LeBron's going to put together a 25-year NBA career where, I don't know, Bryson, 18 of those years, he was the best player in the league. Exactly. Like, what do you say? At what point do you say, all right, we give up? He's just the GOAT. I already fall into that category, and I guess you can call me maybe a little bit biased because, again, I'm a huge Cavalier guy, and he's the reason I got into the NBA when he was playing with the Cavs, and then I just kind of stuck with him when he left, and then when he came back, it was the greatest moment of my life. But at what point do you just say, all right, like the guy just does everything. He just does everything, and he's done it better than anybody that's ever played this game.
I mean, like you said, the Jordan fans are kind of running out of arguments. He's just as good of a scorer as Michael. If you want to debate who the best between those two is, fine. Because Jordan averaged 30 a game. LeBron is the all-time score record, whatever. LeBron's unquestionably the better passer. He's a better rebounder. Defensively, Jordan won a Defensive Player of the Year, but LeBron probably should have won 2, if we're being honest. Certainly that year. I think it was 2013 when Marc Gasol won it. LeBron should have won that year.
Oh, yeah.
No question about it. Not to mention longevity. He has by a mile over Jordan. He's won 4 championships, 3 of them with different teams, different coaches, different second co-stars. I mean, Michael Jordan never won a playoff series without Scottie Pippen. And it's not to diminish Jordan. He's no lower than 2 if LeBron is the greatest. But like you said, it's almost becoming a little bit silly.
Well, I think you brought up a very interesting point where, that's one of the things that gets brought up about Jordan and LeBron that I don't think it's discussed enough, is that Michael Jordan had Phil Jackson throughout his entire finals run. I mean, Phil Jackson is one of the greatest basketball minds in the history of the sport. Who's LeBron's greatest coach? Eric Spoelstra? And Spoelstra is, let's not,
he's a good coach.
He's very good coach.
Yeah.
But is he an all-timer? Do you think Eric Spoelstra ranks among the greatest coaches of all time with Red Auerbach and Phil Jackson and all those guys? I just don't think that he does. So that's another factor that kind of plays into this. You brought it up before, the factor of teammates, the teams that he played against. I mean, listen, I've made the argument, and I know that you like this because I've told you this numerous times before. The Warrior teams between 2015 and 2018 with Kevin Durant, I think those were the greatest teams of all time. Yep. I mean, the 2017 team, the 2016 team where the Warriors went 73-9. And then in 2017, when they added Kevin Durant, they went 67-15. That's the year where I think that we saw the greatest team to ever play. Yes. Was the 67-15 team with Durant and Curry and Clay and Draymond Green and all those guys, obviously. though, I mean, those were the teams that he was playing against in the finals. I mean, you got to keep in mind, between 2010 and 2018, he had gone to the finals every year.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't like, he was falling short. I can't say enough. I can't. I'm sitting here and I'm giddy because I feel like people are actually saying, okay, like now the conversation is being brought up as realistic instead of like, stop it. I'm very happy that this is where this conversation is going now.
It is. It does seem to be shifting a little bit. And, you bring up that 2017 Warriors team, and obviously I may sound a little bit biased, but I do think that's the greatest team of all time. And LeBron averaged 35, 12, and 10. I'm sorry, 33, 12, and 10 against those Warriors teams. And as I always make the argument that the Cavs in 2017 were better than the Cavs of 2016.
Yeah.
Problem is,
they were.
Golden State had the second or third best player on planet Earth, and that completely changed the dynamic. Now, speaking of Kevin Durant, the trade that broke Twitter, if only it happened in the middle of the day, otherwise the reaction would have been absolutely insane. It not happening 1 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. I think it's great for Phoenix. What's sort of your takeaway on it?
Well, I think Phoenix is, if there was ever a definition of going all in, right? Like this is going all in. The package that they sent over to Brooklyn to get Kevin Durant is massive. Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson are both very good young players with a lot to offer. Also, you're giving up 4 first-round draft picks. And I mean, listen, I'm a draft guy. I love draft picks, but I mean, you're giving up a ton here. So this, however, this is the positive side of this, is in my eyes, the West was kind of up for grabs. This is a Western Conference where, like, Denver's like 4.5 games into first place right now. Like they're right now statistically, or not even but by standings, they're the best team in the West. I just don't see a juggernaut in this conference. I just don't. But I mean, now I kind of do. Like Phoenix is one of these teams where, like, if everything clicks and they're healthy, Chris Paul is not one of those guys that's going to hog the basketball. He's a distributor first, right? Chris Paul went to Phoenix and it made Phoenix great. And that was it. Phoenix had a great roster before Chris Paul, and then they added Chris Paul, and all of a sudden they became the best team in the league. So now you're adding Kevin Durant to this roster by, again, you're taking away some role players, but your core is still there. It's still Chris Paul. It's still Devin Booker. It's still DeAndre Ayton. It's still the big guys that you want to move forward with. And I trust, like you said before, in the buyout market, they're not done. They're going to add a couple more veterans that have been there before to bolster this roster even further with depth and everything like that. Campaign is still there. I think that's a huge thing. Again, he was phenomenal in the past couple of years, especially in the postseason. So I think right now, this, in my eyes, pretty much clearly makes Phoenix the team to beat in the West. I just don't see another team that can come close to them. I just don't. I know you love the Warriors. But I just don't see it. I don't. If it clicks, they're scary.
Well, sort of the argument I would make, for Phoenix making the right move. You think last year against Dallas, you think if you sub those role players in for KD, you don't think that makes a big difference and they win that series? So that's what it comes down to ultimately. So yeah, you're mortgaging your future, but what's a first round pick in 2025 going to do for you? So
right.
It doesn't make that big of a difference. Now, I haven't gotten to this yet. So the Russell Westbrook trade is really interesting. So first of all, just as far as Russ, I feel it's addition by subtraction. I've tried to not be too brutal on Russ because I think he is what he is at this stage of his career. I've always said I think he's a good dude. His game drives me absolutely nuts to watch. I'm not even a Lakers fan.
Certainly.
But you add D'Angelo Russell, who I don't love, but he's a shot maker. You add Jarrett Vanderbilt. You add Malik Beasley was the other one they got. And so you add guys who can shoot the three, guys who are excellent defenders. I think in terms of fit, I think it's a great trade. for the LA Lakers. And not just that, but the deals they made today. What's your takeaway on the Russ trade and where the Lakers are today sitting in the Western Conference?
Yeah, I think the Lakers did a great job. I mean, they really needed to find a way to get Russell Westbrook off the roster, and it got better a little bit after they moved Westbrook down to the bench role. It got a little bit better, right? The ball didn't get stuck as much. It was a couple draft shows ago. I remember as soon as they traded for him, I brought it up to you and our buddy Barry Grant Jr. I'm like, listen, as soon as they got him, I wanted them to bring Westbrook off the bench because I thought it was a perfect complement to LeBron James if you were going to give LeBron time off, right? Like Westbrook was a perfect guy, same level of aggression, similar skill sets in that sort of sense, just different levels of player, right? Westbrook kind of served as a LeBron light towards the end of his Laker run. But listen, once he had the fallout with Darvin Ham, it was just over. It's over. So other than that, I mean, listen, you're bringing in a guy like D'Angelo Russell, who I think can thrive as an off-ball kind of player for them. He can serve as kind of both, and I think that really, really works. He's a good shooter, good ball handler. I think he fits a lot of what they want to do. And then a lot of the moves that they made today, I mean, especially bringing in Mo Bamba, I don't know, man. I like that one because Mo Bamba is the exact type of mobile big that LeBron likes to play with. And I think he can serve a lot of what Anthony Davis is giving you right now, but almost even better. Like Anthony Davis at this point in his career is a little injured. He's still an incredibly skilled player, but what we've seen from him recently is a lot more rim running. It's a lot less of the aggressive Anthony Davis that we've come to know. Mo Bamba's just an athletic freak who's got a 9.5-foot wingspan, and he blocks shots like crazy. I don't know. This roster now with the Lakers looks less like a random collection of guys, right? Like that's kind of what we viewed the Lakers as ever since LeBron got there. Is it's just like it just feels like a bunch of pieces that don't fit, but these are the guys that they have and they got to roll with it. Now it starts to look like a real NBA roster. However, it's going to take a lot for them to get into the playoff picture and for them to make a lot of noise. I mean, listen, it's getting to the later part of the season. They're 13th in the West right now. They've got ground to make up. So, you know, I like the fact that they're going all in here a little bit, but I mean, listen, who knows where they're going to be a month from now?
And we know LeBron thrives around shooters. It's something that drove me crazy about how the Lakers constructed their roster the last couple of years, particularly with the Westbrook move, especially getting rid of a guy in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was great for him, helped him win the championship in 2020. You know, I saw this stat. I thought it kind of perfectly summarized where the Lakers are at. A couple days ago, they had 3 players shooting over 35% from 3. Now they have 6. And so you change that dynamic completely, which fits LeBron well. The only reason I don't see them as a potential, even if they were to sneak in the playoffs as the 7 or 8 seed, I don't see them as a potential threat to win the West. Has everything to do with Anthony Davis. I always say, I give him the nickname AD, stands for always down. It's not for Anthony Davis because he struggles to stay healthy, and his aggression leaves a lot to be desired. So I think there's a lot of question with the Lakers, but do I feel like this team is going to sneak in the playoffs? I do. It's hard to not like them more than teams like the Utah Jazz, the Portland Trail Blazers and company. So it's going to be interesting to see how it fits, but they're 100% a better team now than they were 48 hours ago.
Definitely.
Any other trades that sort of stuck out to you? I know, listen, the one that made me the most happy was my Warriors bringing back Gary Payton II. Basically only having to trade James Wiseman. They kind of maneuvered their way with Portland, with Detroit. It was they pulled off well. A trade that stuck out to you the most, you're like, okay, this could be a big impact move for a team to possibly win a championship.
So here's the thing, Bryson, is that I from what I saw today, I really didn't see all that much that was like, oh my God, this is going to be the move that takes them to the next level outside of Durant, potentially Kyrie Irving to Dallas. Right. Like outside of those like big star moves, I'm not sure that there's going to be a move where it's just like, okay, this is going to take them over the top. I will tell you the move that I thought was really, really interesting, and it kind of almost, I think, set a new precedent for trades in the NBA, was when Jay Crowder got traded to the Bucks for 5 second-round picks. I'm thinking to myself, I mean, this they're just throwing away these. I mean, we're already to a point now where if you try to look at like a mock draft before the season, I mean, it's never just, okay, the Memphis Grizzlies select this player. No, It's Memphis via Portland, via Denver, via Indiana. Like it's those kind of picks. So I think for like, I don't know, maybe ever, for as long as the league exists, we're just going to see, you know, with the 42nd pick in the second round, the Trailblazers are selecting for Utah, Cleveland, the Pacers, Detroit. Like, it's just going to be one of those sort of things. I do think that also, outside of like the stars, I think a very interesting move today was Sadiq Bey to Atlanta. Now, this is less of a this year move, I think, for the Hawks, because I think the Hawks they're an interesting team. They've got some up and down stuff with John Collins. You have no idea where they're going to go with that. But, you know, adding those 3-and-D guys to rosters that, and listen, I think Atlanta is pretty close to ready-made. Like they're about a star away from making some real noise. So I thought that was a very interesting move. I'm disappointed that the Cavs didn't fill their hole at small forward.
Sure.
Because again, they're fourth in the Eastern Conference right now, you know, and they're sitting behind some teams that are pretty complete. You know, listen, they got 2 wins early in the season against Boston. I think that they can compete with the top teams in the East, but when it comes down to these series, how far can they get? How far can their health take them? So, you know, we did see a bunch of trades today that had a lot to do with role players and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say there was a move that stood out outside of obviously Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and pretty much the Nets selling everything they have. But outside of that, I'm not sure there was another move that just said, okay, this is the move that puts them over the top.
I'll tell you, and it's going to make somebody in the comments, you know exactly who that is, roll their eyes, but the Clippers getting Bones Highland and Eric Gordon, I think, is really interesting. You had 2 shooters. Bones is more of a more natural scorer, I think, than Eric Gordon is. Eric Gordon's more of a spot-up guy who's not terrible on the defensive side of the floor. Obviously, he's had to play some bad teams in Houston the last couple of years. I thought that those 2 were interesting moves.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, listen, anytime you can add shooting, right? I mean, Eric Gordon, who has been, you know, I guess one of the staples in Houston this year, you know, as bad as Houston has been, you know, they're transitioning to a young team. He just didn't fit anymore. They needed to get him out of town. But Eric Gordon is still going to be a viable option for 15 minutes a night, taking 5 threes a night, you know, just trying to get him in some open space beyond the arc. Eric Gordon is still going to be that kind of player that can do that. And Bones Highland, I didn't expect him when he came out of the draft to be this good of a shot creator this early. But I mean, if the Clippers can find a real role for him, and I'm actually very surprised that Denver traded him, because I really thought that they were going to find a real role for him. He was a real spark for them off the bench. I mean, listen, if the Clippers can benefit from that, then, I mean, look, like I said, you can never have enough guys that can put the ball in the basket. You can't have enough guys that can just shoot. That's the name of the game, right? If you have guys that can shoot it at a relatively high percentage, and you're not wasting possessions, which Bones Highland and Eric Gordon don't necessarily do, and Eric Gordon's been in the league for a long time. He's a smart player. So if they can make all that happen, then, I mean, I think it's good moves for the Clippers. And they really didn't give up that much either. So
No, I agree. Now, back to the Lakers. Barry says he doesn't want to hear a Cavs fan break down his team.
No, tell him to stop it.
Yeah, you just
this is being ridiculous.
13 seed in the West. Come on, man. And he doesn't like what we have to say about the Clippers. He says, "Oh, brother, stop it with the clappers. It's been 4 years of propping up the Clippers. Enough. You brought in, you never bought into BK, but you praised this dumpster fire organization. Well, listen, it's changed things since Steve Ballmer's bought the team. That changed things big time in terms of aggressiveness and how we view LA.
I don't think the Clippers, he's going to like this. I don't think the Clippers are title contenders. I don't.
Really?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I think the Clippers are a very interesting team when it comes to what they are at the top, right? Because obviously Kawhi, when he's healthy, is legit. We obviously love Paul George. Like we love these guys that, play great defense and can create their own shot and do the whole star thing. I get it. But if you look at teams in the West, and like I said, this is not, the West is in a way up for grabs. So the Clippers could, by some miracle in my eyes, find a way to emerge. But I just look at teams like Denver and Phoenix and Dallas, and I even like the Warriors better. There are so many teams in the West that I think I could trust more than the Clippers at this point.
Barry approves, by the way, of what you had to say. He says, thank you, Mike. And Grady says, facts, Kawhi has been a far bigger disappointment in LA than AD. Dude is never available. Yeah, I mean, at least AD gave you one good run the bubble in 2020. And Barry says, Clippers are the greasy door-to-door salesman. That is one way to put it.
He hates the Clippers.
It's incredible.
So
you know what?
much.
He feels the same way about the Clippers that I do about the Memphis Grizzlies. It's like two organizations who certainly have as much talent as anybody, but have never accomplished anything. But yet we assume that they kind of have.
Yeah.
I don't really want to talk that much about the Grizzlies today. Don't give me a bad mood. There's a football game this Sunday. Did you hear about it, Mike?
Yeah. I think most people have.
Yeah. It's pretty important. Super Bowl 57, Philadelphia, Kansas City. Before I ask for your predictions, give me sort of your assessment, starting with the away team, the Kansas City Chiefs, who, of all the years that they weren't supposed to get to the Super Bowl, this was kind of it. Not just trading Tyreek Hill, but they've started, I think, 8 rookies, if I'm not mistaken, this season. Props to Brett Veach for killing it in the draft this last year. And a wide receiving core that is not going to blow you away outside of Travis Kelce, but a defense that is as underrated as they come in terms of getting to the quarterback led by Chris Jones. What's sort of your assessment right now on the Kansas City Chiefs?
I mean, Kansas City at this point, I think, is proving the precedent of as long as they have Andy Reid and as long as they have Patrick Mahomes, they're a threat. Period.
Right.
They just are a threat. And look, Tyreek Hill got traded in the offseason, and our reaction was, what are they doing? Why are they trading quite possibly the best receiver in football, the fastest player on the field at any given time? Why are they doing that? And this is why. Because they just don't need guys like that. They don't need anybody. They just need Mahomes to be at 75%. That's all they need. So at this point right now, Kansas City does a couple of things well, right? They have Patrick Mahomes. They have the offense thing figured out. Trying to break down their weaknesses and their strengths is a waste of time. Kansas City will get the job done on that side of the football, period. Okay. Defensively, what they've been doing, I mean, year after year after year, and it gets talked about less and less just because we get so enamored with what Mahomes and Andy Reid do on the offensive side of the football, but they get after the quarterback, right? Chris Jones, Frank Clark, they get after the quarterback, and they've been doing it for years. So Kansas City right now, their key to this game, right? And Jalen Hurts is a very mobile quarterback. If they can make him uncomfortable, then I think it's almost going to be, I don't want to say easy for them, but they're going to feel much more comfortable if Jalen Hurts is the one that's making the mistakes and Patrick Mahomes is the one that's calm, cool, and collected because he's been there before.
100%. And Barry says, when are people going to start talking about Andy Reid being one of the greatest head coaches of all time?
Oh, I think they already are.
Title games like it's normal. I've been making this argument for a couple of years that you think about up until it's almost like it feels like Mahomes is almost like Andy Reid's reward after a lifetime of hard work. Again, nothing against guys like Donovan McNabb, Alex Smith, and other guys that he's worked with. Solid quarterbacks, solid starters. But again, like Barry said, we're shocked if he's not in the conference championship game. Even when he was in Philadelphia, didn't he make like 4 straight at one point? I think it was in the early 2000s. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I don't think I think Barry's just a little bit misled because I think that conversation is happening. I don't think that Like I really think people are starting to have that conversation, and they've really started to have that conversation in the past year or so, ranking Andy Reid among some of the best. Now, again, people are making the argument right now that Andy Reid is the best coach in the NFL today at this current point in time, even better than Bill Belichick, just because the Chiefs have had the success that the Patriots haven't had since Tom Brady left, right? No. So people are kind of giving Andy Reid a lot more props now about what his success has been like in recent years. But look, this is a point where I think you kind of have to, right? I mean, the Chiefs are already showing I don't even want to say showing the early signs. They've kind of emerged into a dynasty in a way, like they're going to win a few of these. I'm just saying. Sure. Like they're going to win a couple of these, and I don't know when they're going to win a couple of these, but they're going to be a force. Like I said, as long as Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are manning those positions in Kansas City, I mean, they're going to be a threat pretty much every single year. And this, I think, was the thing that Andy Reid needed in order to cement himself in that sort of ilk with Bill Walsh and Belichick and Tom Landry and those guys. Absolutely. I think, again, when you talk about, I mean, we look at what the Chiefs did just on that one drive against Jacksonville, what Chad Henne was able to do. Who the heck is Chad Henne? He's a bust in Jacksonville. I mean, it's incredible what this guy does with quarterbacks. Sure. And obviously, having a guy with the just unbelievable talent of Mahomes certainly doesn't hurt matters. Philadelphia's back in the game for the second time in the last 5 years. I'm sure that doesn't make you all that happy as a Cowboys fan. No, that it doesn't. It can't help. So, what's your take on the Eagles? Because my thing is, I feel like in hindsight, it's 2020, but it feels like even the first game this season, they played the Detroit Lions. They won by 3 points. The final score was not indicative of how much they dominated that game. From that point to now, it feels like they've been the best team in the league throughout. If you talk about having a top 3 defense, the best running team in the NFL offensively with the best offensive line, and Jalen Hurts having an MVP caliber season. What's sort of your thoughts right now with the Philadelphia Eagles? Yeah, listen, Philly, I think is one of those teams where their roster is just working, right? Every single year we just have that team where, they have a quarterback that I think is overachieving a little bit, but their roster just fits. Everything is working, right? It was the Rams last year with Stafford, and it happens every year, right? Or at least close to every year. This is the Eagles this year. I still have my doubts about Jalen Hurts in the long term. I'm not sure he's the best thrower of the football for in the league. I'm not sure how long his legs can last. Like I still have my questions about Jalen Hurts because I'm still iffy on the level of ascension that he's shown over the past number of years, pretty much since he started playing for Lincoln Riley till now. I'm still questioning that. But this year, he's the man. So you just have to kind of roll with what you're seeing now. I mean, they've really kind of had command of every game they've played in, pretty much every game they've played in this season. They run the ball so unbelievably well. They have a great offensive line. Their defense is stout from top to bottom. I mean, you just don't really see a weakness here. And say what you want about Nick Sirianni, and I'm not sure how good of a coach Nick Sirianni is as far as X's and O's. He's got 2 great coordinators with Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. Like, it's just working over there. Say what you want about Nick Sirianni, but he knows how to motivate men, right? Like, he does. That's one of the things that Jeff Saturday, when he took over in Indianapolis, that was the thing that he said. He's like, listen, I could be horrible at this, but I have experience in motivating men. That's the important part. And that's exactly what Nick Sirianni does in Philly. So, listen, as far as rosters go, I think Philadelphia is stronger than Kansas City. Again, you're playing Mahomes and Andy Reid. It's a lot. It's going to be a very entertaining game. But if Philadelphia can run the football, they can control the clock, they can keep Jalen Hurts safe, then I don't see any reason why they can't control this game like they've done pretty much over the course of the season. And the superiority in rosters is the biggest reason that Philadelphia now it's slim favorite, but they're a 1.5 favorite in this game as we sit here today. We'll see if that line moves up and down. It's pretty much stayed consistent.
Barry says, this is the most monumental Super Bowl for me because we are witnessing two young black quarterbacks vying for the title. It makes me smile from ear to ear. I can forget Hurts as an Eagle for one day. It's absolutely, it's a huge monumental
No, you
moment
can't.
for the NFL.
You can't forget, as a Cowboy fan, you cannot forget that Jalen Hurts is an Eagle. That is terrible, terrible advice. That's awful. You can't say that.
Oh, gosh. You're salty. I can understand, though. As a former Cowboy fan, I can understand why you feel the way you feel. And Grady says, amen, Barry. Also, Hurts is just an inspiration in his own right. Dude got benched in the national championship game and is playing for a Super Bowl. Guy is a real man and the ultimate team / character guy. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. No, he's an easy guy to root for.
He definitely is. And that's part of what gets brought up a lot is Jalen Hurts is a very high character guy. He's always been, right? Nick Saban never had a bad word to say about him other than the fact that he wasn't really a good thrower of the football when he was at Alabama. But listen, Nick Saban didn't have anything bad to say about him. Lincoln Riley hasn't had anything bad to say about him. He's just kind of a locker room glue guy. He's got that smile, that believable smile that everybody likes him, right? He's a very easy guy to root for. You're right about that.
So real quick, before I ask you your prediction for the Super Bowl, let's put up the graphics. So we've had 3 guests on. Again, I'm still waiting for John Rivera's pick once the new Fan Perspective podcast airs. But Alfred Parser Jr. here at the Grid, Rocky Field Jets podcast came on last week. He's got Kansas City 28-24. Patrick Brown of the Chaotic Sports podcast here at the Grid, he came on Monday, almost identical. He said 27-24 Kansas City, and he said on a walk-off field goal. So Mike Guido, point blank, who wins Super Bowl 57?
Kansas City.
Okay.
I think Kansas City takes it. If you're asking for a score, I didn't have a score prepared, but I do think it's going to be relatively close. I don't think it's going to be game-winning field goal. But I'll say let's go 31-24 Kansas City over Philadelphia.
31-24. I'll be sure to put that in the books for our next guest coming on tomorrow. Last question before I get out of here. I want to throw this in because I'm a Tennessee fan. You're the draft guy. What's the stock saying Hendon Hooker right now? Are you hearing anything?
On who? Hendon Hooker?
Yeah.
I don't see him going until day 3, probably. Just really? Because look, I think people are going to have injury concerns with him. It's really tough taking quarterbacks who, and Hendon Hooker doesn't necessarily rely on his legs, but it is a part of his game. So him coming off that serious of an injury, with a guy that relies on his legs that much, and again, rely is the right word, but that's part of his game now. I think that's going to drop his stock, but I do think whoever gets him is going to be getting a very nice quarterback prospect that can do a lot of things right. Listen, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. I wouldn't mind Hendon Hooker being taken as kind of an experiment, but listen, Hendon Hooker, up until he got injured, I think was the clear Heisman frontrunner. He was just unbelievably good this year, and then we saw Caleb Williams just take off towards the end of the year. But Hendon Hooker does a lot of things right. Now, I don't think he has the same NFL qualities that you look for in a prospect as Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. I don't think he has Will Levis's arm. I'm not sure he has the special Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes type arm. He doesn't have Joe Burrow type accuracy. He doesn't have that, but he does a lot of things well. I think he could be a very good project for somebody, but I just don't see him going earlier than the 4th round.
That's very interesting. I'm curious to see where his draft stock goes over the next 2.5 months. We're going to need to do a draft show on the Grid or something because I cannot wait for the NFL draft. We got to make it happen.
Yeah,
awesome
it's going to be a phenomenal day. It really is. Look, every single year for draft season, it's phenomenal. Listen, we've never done an NFL draft show before, but if we were to do that, that'd be fantastic. Also, for the NBA draft this year, we're going to have a bunch of really good players. I'm just telling you right now, spoiler alert, I'm not sure I've ever evaluated a player that's as good as Victor Wembanyama. I just don't think that I just don't think I'm going to run into it. 7'3", 7'4", whatever he is. He's as tall as Yao Ming. He shoots 35-foot threes off one leg. I don't know, man.
It's a video game. They created him on 2K, Mike.
They really did. They don't even let you create players on 2K that good. It's freaky.
Absolutely. No, he's outstanding. I can't wait for the draft. Him and all the other prospects that you mentioned. We're definitely going to make that happen sometime in late June. Mike Guido, awesome stuff as always. Appreciate you coming on the show once again, my man.
I appreciate it, Bryson. Thanks.
That was Mike Guido, the co-founder of the Grid Network. Love having him on the show. Let's see. We got a few more comments here before we get out of here. Grady says the only person with a bad thing to say about Jalen Hurts right now is Carson Wentz. I don't know. I don't even know if Wentz can say. I get he stole his job and everything. Although I could make the case Wentz kind of gave him the job because he was horrible in 2020, and I thought had a kind of overrated last 4-game stretch in 2019. But it is what it is. Here we go. There we go, Barry. Cowboys must draft a quarterback. We'll have a discussion about Dak soon. We will have a nuanced discussion. That's what we do on Carving It Up. And then he says, can't wait to hear what this draft maniac has in store this year. Hey, I'm telling you, you guys don't know. If you guys haven't watched Barry, myself, and Mike here on Carving It Up in 21 and 22, the past couple of summers, we did our NBA draft show. I'm telling you, just go on my YouTube channel and subscribe while you're there, by the way. Just wouldn't hurt whatsoever. And subscribe to the Grid too. But go on there, watch 5 minutes. Watch 5 minutes. It's incredible. It's absolutely. Barry and I sometimes are just watching it all. He's outstanding. So yeah, absolutely. Hats off to Mike Guido. Absolutely love having him on the show, and great stuff as always. I'll get more into some of these other trade deadline scenarios on tomorrow's show. I think I'll even talk more LeBron, the significance of his record more tomorrow. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff to discuss. We're going to probably have a guest, 2 guests, maybe more than that tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving It Up Live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. And be sure to like, share, comment, and take 2 seconds out of your day, as I just mentioned. Hit that big red subscribe button. Helps the channel grow exponentially. And we just had Mike Guido on of the Grid Network. Please subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network on YouTube. That is also, we can find all our incredible shows. Barry Grant Jr. of the All Even Podcast. You saw Alfred Parsar Jr. in the comments. Rocket Fuel Jets Podcast. Patrick Brown, the Chaotic Sports Podcast. Ryan Flowers, Clutch Sports Talk. The Cowboys Cam Fan Podcast. We've got incredible content. Outstanding creators. Please go check all that stuff out. That is also where you can listen to all of our shows, including myself, including Carving It Up, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Crazy show today, crazy day, crazy week in sports. The fact that the Super Bowl, barely anybody's talking about it right now. That's how crazy it's been in sports. Can't wait. By the way, tomorrow's show, I will give my Super Bowl prediction. Thus far, we got a clean sweep. 4 guests on the show. John Rivera will give his soon, but of the 3 that predicted a winner and a score, all 3 went Kansas City. Will I go Kansas City, or will I go against the grain and pick the favorites, the Philadelphia Eagles? Tune in tomorrow to find that out. Have a great evening, everybody. Please continue to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical and your mental health. God bless you all. Peace out. We got the young love back, baby. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.